A study of gay men in San Francisco provided new evidence of the dire medical prospects of carriers of the AIDS virus. In the absence of effective treatment, the vast majority of those affected will face complications and death. The government has failed to provide funding for treatment or public education on multiple occasions, which has led to complete mass hysteria. A total of 700,000 deaths has been attributed. James Brady, the former press secretary for President Reagan, was injured during the assassination attempt and has recently taken up a stance for gun control and for disabled rights. Brady was shot in the head and will have physical handicaps for the rest of his life and believes that no one should have the right to own a handgun. The crack epidemic has reached a new high. Former President Carter's chief drug advisor had labeled cocaine as a benign drug, claiming there was no evidence of major health consequences. Crack, however, has alarmed police officers, health officials, and the public alike with how little knowledge there is about the new drug. It's difficult to tell whether the fears of an epidemic are founded or not.
Music lovers, say goodbye to vinyl records and cassette tapes, and hello to the compact disc, or CD, that is now dominating the music market. This new way of listening to music was created by Philips Corporation and Sony. CDs are small, lightweight, and easy to transport as they are only about 5 inches wide and promise the listener a high-quality recording of their favorite and new albums while being able to hold more information than a record or tape. Here's how they work. Sounds are recorded on every metallic pit of the disc. Inside a CD player, a laser reads these pits and converts them into music. This year's top-grossing film was Steven Spielberg's E.T., the Extraterrestrial. A lost alien encounters a human boy who helps him return to his home planet. All the while, the alien helps to bring the boy's family closer together. The movie that warmed the hearts of millions of Americans has won Academy Awards for sound, sound effects, music, and visual effects.
Reports have confirmed a total of 241 deaths resulting from the U.S. Marine barracks bombing in Beirut, Lebanon. On October 23rd, a suicide bomber associated with militant group Hezbollah crashed into the compound with a pickup truck armed with 2,000 pounds of explosives. Last year, President Reagan sent Marines on a peacekeeping mission to Lebanon amidst a bloody civil war between the Lebanese Christian militia and Muslim Israeli forces. Reagan has just announced his plan to withdraw the remaining Marines.
AIDS, what was once thought to be a rare type of pneumonia, has circulated across America since its outbreak 2 years ago in 1981, infecting thousands. Recent studies show that AIDS, or acquired immune deficiency syndrome, is caused by HIV, human immunodeficiency virus, which is transferred from one person to another through unprotected sex or exchange of bodily fluids. This virus that spread to the U.S. from Africa shuts down one's immune system and limits the body's ability to fight off illness. Buy it in stores over Cabbage Patch Kids, the new popular children's toy that your child can adopt. Every doll is different from the others and comes with its own adoption certificate. The dolls are in such high demand that parents are fighting each other in stores to get one for their kids. Some stores have even begun taking precautionary measures, wrapping the dolls in paper to prevent fights over the ones that parents like best.
On January 15, 1985, the Supreme Court reached a decision on the TLO v. New Jersey case. TLO, a young girl caught smoking in the school bathroom, brought the case forward, claiming that school administrators did not have the right to search student property. On the 15th, the Supreme Court ruled that school administrators could, in fact, seize and search student property if there was cause for suspicion, with or without a warrant.
The San Francisco 49ers have just won their second Super Bowl of the decade, defeating the Miami Dolphins at Stanford Stadium with a score of 38-16. The Niners gained an early lead over Miami with 3 consecutive touchdowns in the first half. Joe Montana finished off the game with a 16-yard pass to running back Joe Craig. The 49ers have witnessed a great deal of success these past few years following the arrival of star quarterback Montana and coach Bill Walsh. Recently, San Francisco had acquired receiver Jerry Rice at the start of this season.
This just in, a nuclear power plant near the city of Chernobyl, Soviet Union, has suffered an explosion in one of its reactors. The explosion released 100 million curies of radiation into the air, a catastrophic amount. As of now, 31 people have died from the initial explosion. More deaths and illnesses are to be expected due to the effects of radiation on the population. Earlier this year, reports leaked that described the sale of missiles, ammunition, and jet and tank parts by the U.S. government to Iran, which was forbidden by Congress prior to the beginning of what has come to be known as the Iran-Contra affair. Officials had hoped the deal would persuade Iran into helping to free some American hostages held by a group of Lebanese terrorists. Some of the money allegedly went to supporting and arming Contras in Nicaragua, fighting against the nation's communist government, another illegal act. As of now, military personnel like Lieutenant Colonial Oliver North and members of the presidential administration are under investigation, though President Reagan denies knowing any knowledge of the illegal deal.
A new immigration bill was proposed that would punish employers of illegal immigrants. It would offer amnesty to those who could prove residence before January 1st, 1982. It would also increase the Border Patrol efforts, as well as the holding time for deportees.
One of the few positive aspects in his 2 presidential terms, President Reagan has made great efforts towards ending the Cold War with Russia. Earlier this year, Reagan traveled to Berlin to make his speech under the Brandenburg Gate on June 12th, in which he pleaded to Soviet Union Premier Mikhail Gorbachev to tear down this wall, referring to the Berlin Wall. Since 1961, the Berlin Wall has divided the Communist East faction with Democratic West Berlin. Additionally, Gorbachev and Reagan have just met in Washington, D.C. to sign the Intermediate-Range Nuclear Forces Treaty into action, eliminating nuclear and conventional ground-launched ballistic and cruise missiles. This culminates negotiations that began in 1985 that aimed to reach a mutual consensus on arms reduction, realizing the dire consequences nuclear war would bring. Hopefully, this landmark agreement opens the door to further treaties regarding nuclear arms limitations. Following his election, President Reagan announced his policy of supply-side economics, better known as Reaganomics. In 1981, Congress enacted the Economic Recovery Tax Act, which lowered tax rates he hoped under a trickle-down philosophy, lower tax rates for Americans would make them bigger consumers, thus increasing production, balancing the country's budget. Yet for over a year and a half after the launch of his plan, supply-side economics appeared to be a huge failure, and our country witnessed a dramatic economic recession with massive business failures and unemployment reaching 11%. Finally, America has reached somewhat of an economic upturn for the latter half of the decade. However, prosperity appears to be limited only to the upper classes. In this year, our country has reached a national debt of $300 trillion and a trade deficit of $150 billion. The Edmonton Oilers have defeated the Boston Bruins in the 1988 Stanley Cup Finals with a score of 6-3, winning the series 4-0. Since the acquisition of 8-time MVP and now captain Wayne Gretzky in 1979, the Oilers have achieved much success, becoming the highest-scoring team so far in NHL history. Gretzky is projected to break Gordie Howe's career point record by the end of his next season. The LA Lakers defeated the Detroit Pistons in the 7-game 1988 NBA Championship. Known as Showtime from the fast-break offense led by Magic Johnson, with help from veteran Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, the Lakers have won their 5th championship of the decade.
This week in Yellowstone National Park, Wyoming, the worst wildfires in the park's history have spread over into parts of Montana and other states throughout the West. Over 3 million acres of federal land have been singed thus far. A total of 13,000 firefighters are working to contain the fires. According to M. Rupert Cutler, president of Defender of Wildlife and a former Assistant Secretary of Agriculture, the burning of Yellowstone is not destroying it, but changing it, and promoting biodiversity in plants and animals that will emerge after the fire ends.